CAIN simply stands for Conflict Archive on the Internet. It's a web-based resource which provides information and source material on the Northern Ireland conflict and politics from 1968 onwards. It is now internationally recognised as the leading online resource in the world on the Northern Ireland conflict. The material recently released largely deal with the year 1986. That is a very significant year, and it just follows the signing of the Anglo-Irish Agreement in 1985. And what these documents attempt to show and to demonstrate, firstly, there's the workings of the Anglo-Irish Agreement itself in terms of minutes of some of the meetings of what was called the Anglo-Irish Intergovernmental Conference, where ongoing security and political matters of the day were discussed between Irish and British government officials. In addition, the material also demonstrates the growing campaign against the agreement by unionists across Northern Ireland, and it's very interesting to see how that campaign begins and then develops.
1986 really saw the agreement in full operation with the meeting of the Anglo-Irish Conference. So there's a lot of briefing papers for the ministers and from senior civil servants, but there's also, I suppose, a lot of content about social issues, maybe such as joyriding, economic issues or high unemployment at that period, but a lot of it concentrates on the unionist protests at that time. Obviously, Ian Paisley, Jim Molyneux in the lead on the unionist side, and their opposition to the Anglo-Irish Agreement, so that really comes to the fore in a lot of the material that was released. I suppose there's a selection here. There's letters written by Ian Paisley and Jim Molyneux to Mrs Thatcher, to Number 10, saying that they're still very much opposed to the agreement and they're not impressed by the lack of flexibility from Number 10. But there's also a sort of a summons to the whole sort of unionist politicians, to the local councillors, to come to an event at Stormont. It includes a sort of a little invitation to get them into the Stormont estate so they could gather outside Parliament buildings to show their opposition to the Anglo-Irish Agreement. Then there's also briefings. This was, they're called like first day briefs, when a new minister came in or a new senior civil servant came in, just to bring them up to speed on what the position was. And that also, I suppose, it provides a highlight or a summary of what a lot of the issues were in Northern Ireland at the time. They would have been talking about security, about the political developments, about the economy, marching, and you'll get that illustrated right across the files. 1986 saw regular meetings of the Anglo-Irish Conference, so you'll have entire files that are devoted to the sort of those meetings, all of the documents that were prepared. What's been gone online and what's available is not an entire file, but it's some of the key documents from those. So it could be a briefing about the Irish language, and Irish language was one of the sort of key themes that the Anglo-Irish Conference looked at. So you'll get what developments are happening in the north, what the position of the Irish government is, what the position of the British government is, a lot of the debate around those issues and the discussion. You know, there's a document here about a conversation between Peter Robinson and a journalist, and he was actually, Peter Robinson at the time was sort of saying to the journalist that, you know, they're going to have to live with the Anglo-Irish Agreement, where publicly he might have been saying we're absolutely opposed. So you get to see some of the, I suppose, more nuanced sort of stories behind the scenes, and maybe records of conversations that they had with other people that they maybe couldn't say publicly at the time. So you get, you know, it's all of that sort of richness and detail that you get in the documents.
I think they will allow people the opportunity to access these official government records and provide people with an opportunity themselves to examine some of the raw material of our recent past, but also an opportunity to evaluate some of the key events and personalities of the time, again for themselves, which I think one of the great appeals of history is allowing people to do that for themselves. In addition, I should add that the work we have done with the Public Records Office has allowed us to develop a similar section with the National Archive of Ireland, So therefore what we have therefore is two unique websites, or two sections on Cain, providing official government records which provide people with some insight to what was happening on both sides of the border for themselves.
Over 200 documents have gone on to the Pony on Cain website and are available with Ulster University. I suppose that's only a highlight of what's available. Each document or each key document has come out of a file with hundreds of documents. If you go onto the website, you will see each document has a reference number, a unique Pony reference number. And if a visitor takes a note of that, or if a researcher takes a note of that, that means they can come in and see the entire file. You get the whole context. This is just, each document, I suppose, is a snapshot of a particular event. So if you take a note of that, you'll be able to come into Pony. It's free to visit, free to become a reader, and you can order out the files and actually see all of the information